everybody. So this is a really fun episode of the Talking Disney Classics podcast with me and Stanford. We had our friend Darin on from NostalgiaCast's, but there's a little bit of issues with some of the audio. I tried to fix it as best I could, but I still think it's a good episode and I think you'll enjoy it. So sorry about that, but I hope you enjoy it. Everybody, welcome to the Talking Disney podcast. This is the show where we talk about the Disney canon and we talk to creators about their canon rankings. We finished doing our coverage of the canon last year. And so we've been having creators on, content creators and friends on to talk about their ranking of the Disney canon. It's so much fun. I love doing it. And today we have my podcaster friend Darin from NostalgiaCast's on. And I'm so excited because we have been friends on Twitter for years and we're actually communicating. This is so exciting.
Yeah, without having to type, it's like I can hear my voice and I can hear your voice, and it's like, yeah, it's amazing. Stanford's here too, right? You introduce him first.
No, I'm so happy. I follow Darin on Twitter, and so I'm just so excited to get to know you better, Darin, and this is just going to be so fun to talk with you about this.
Yeah, you guys are just so positive when the podcast that both of you do, and especially talking Disney. Well, not especially, but talking Disney as well. Like you guys are just so positive, and so it's an honor being a part of this. As long as Rachel and I have been friends, it's finally getting around to it. It's great.
Yes. All right. I really enjoy getting to do this. And, you know, when I first thought of this as an idea to continue on, because I just love chatting with Stanford about Disney movies, I was like, what could we cover? And this idea of bringing people on, talking about their rankings, I thought, won't that get kind of boring? Because everybody will know our rankings. But it's been very interesting. Now we've done 7 or 8 of them at this point, and each one has been a little bit different. The conversation's been different. It's been great.
Yeah. I've enjoyed it a lot too.
It's been listening to it, so I can only imagine what it's like being part of chatting about it.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, how you started, how you got involved in the podcast, and what you guys do, and your history with Disney, Disney animation.
Okay. Yeah. Again, my name is Darin Lumberg. We run the my childhood friend and I, Johnny. We run the NostalgiaCast's podcast, where we basically take movies, from our childhoods. You know how you watch movies when you're a kid and you remember liking them, and then you don't see them for maybe 10, 20 years, and then you find them in like the metaphor we like to use is you find it in like a $3.74 or $5 Walmart bin, and so you're like, yeah, I'll check that out. So you buy it. It's the cost of what used to be a rental. I believe people remember that you could actually rent movies from video stores, and so you bring it home, you watch it, and either they stand the test of time, or like, oh boy, why did I like this? It's just one of those things that doesn't quite matter. So just a fun idea. Speaking of your other podcast, when you do these rankings, I know you did it with Sean Chandler. It was just interesting listening to him talk, because he says he got the thing that kicked him off was the Ghostbusters 2016. Like he did a video.
As a YouTuber.
Yeah. So what I did is I've always been into movies. Like I always talk about how I'm an only kid, and so my mom raised me. And so as a babysitter, she would just leave me. She would rent maybe 2 movies because she was a Tupperware dealer, all these little odd jobs she tried to do. So she was away for most of the time. But if she could leave me for 4 hours with a couple of movies, I would be fine. I would just sit there and watch movies and absorb. And so that's, I've always wanted to talk about movies. I studied to be a film critic in college. I attended the U of U for a little bit. And then around the time that Pirates of the Caribbean, what was the second one? Dead Man's Chest came out. I realized that people hate critics. And so I decided that maybe I didn't want to be a movie critic. But so a little bit after that, I started my own blog. It was called Finding the Wrong Words. It got away from me, but I used to write a bunch of articles and do different series and things like that. And so one of the projects that I did was I called it Disney Animated 50. Again, it's weird because Stanford, you said that you did your canon watch when Tangled came out around.
Yeah, I did. That was the first time I did a full canon watch.
Right. So when Tangled,
the 50th feature.
Yeah, it was great. So by the time they hit that, I thought it was a milestone. So I thought, well, I'll do my own project. And so I did Disney Animated 50 on Finding the Wrong Words.
Oh, that's cool.
I watched all that. And again, I talk about it in the first article, the first piece, right? I reviewed Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, but I've never been like a big Disney person. I think I was around the time I started really liking movies, I think I was too old for Disney. And so all I ever really knew of them was that little batch from the 60s to the 70s where their
You
animation
can never
just
be
wasn't
too old for Disney.
right. I know, right? So yeah, but I just always
I
thought of
hear
it
what
as
you're
not my
saying.
thing. So yeah, so everybody has their stupid phases, and so that was mine. But going back and watching all the movies, I just it was fun. Like, oh, these movies are actually great, or some aren't so great, or that kind of thing. And then
Yeah.
like I was talking about with Sean, like around the time Ghostbusters came out, that was the time I thought about starting to do a podcast, and that was the thing that kicked it into gear, because I think nostalgia can either be a killer or it can be something that really helps your opinion of movies. And I think the nostalgia around Ghostbusters was just so toxic. Just the way that everybody got death threats, Leslie
Yeah.
Jones especially, and so that kind of kicked it in my brain and about starting up a podcast. So that's where the idea came from. But again, it's just interesting. And then Rachel, you started your first Can Watch with Big Hero 6, I believe, right?
Yeah, well, it was that year. My original website was 54 Disney Reviews because the idea was that was all I was gonna do.
Yeah.
I was just gonna review the 54 films because I had a torn ACL in my leg and I couldn't really move very much. And so I needed something to do. And I just turned out I really enjoyed writing about films. And so I just decided to kind of keep at it. And then I ended up sort of starting the YouTube channel. Originally, my YouTube channel was more for unboxings because I really enjoyed doing that.
Right.
And then I did the How I Met Your Mother variant. And then I did some DVD reviews. That was some of the first ones that I did. And then I just kept doing more and wanting to learn. And that's one of the sort of unheralded blessings of doing a podcast, is just all of the things that you learn as you go. I mean, I feel like as an adult, once you're finished your schooling, it's harder to kind of learn things.
Yeah.
You have your sort of store of knowledge, but I don't know, because you're just not. At least maybe it's something with me that I kind of like need a class or a project to kind of really learn. And that's how my brain learns best. I'm not someone who could just be like, I'm reading all these nonfiction books to learn all this stuff. And so having the podcast, I've learned so much. I mean, about Adobe Premiere and editing and Photoshop and creating graphics, creating thumbnails. Like, and I still have a long way to go. I'm not, I have more to learn, but I think that's one of the hidden kind of blessings of not, and especially learning how to write better, learning how to edit my own writing better. I think that's one of the exciting things about doing what I do.
Well, maybe I should start doing that, because I just assume everything I say and everything that I write is just perfect. So,
Well, I mean, probably.
I don't know about that.
Well, what do you think that you learn from watching the complete Disney canon every film?
Well, number one, I learned to get over myself. Animation is the medium of it is, there's so much to do and so much to express. And Disney, especially, I think you mentioned this in one of your other episodes too, it's just a learning curve. And it's like you learn everything about the world at the time and how everything was functioning. Just from like the Disney animated 50 perspective, it's great seeing like Walt get an idea and then try to put that into words, and just the stages that he went through, like doing Snow White and Pinocchio and Fantasia, and having it like bankrupt him and not make as much money as he needed, and then having to back off and try to, well, before that, obviously the war hit and he had to do all the package movies. And so just to see him try and stay relevant with all his shorts and things like that. And then when he came back, he came back with Cinderella, and just, he had to cut things back and couldn't spend as much because he realized he was losing a lot of money. And then obviously he kept trying to figure out how to work the box office and the public, and there are ups and downs. And obviously when he started going out, they started using the Xeroxing, and there was that whole, the waning period from the 60s to the 70s, and then the Renaissance and the after, so it's interesting watching the stages, and it's interesting watching them figure everything out, you know what I mean? And how to build their legacy, so to speak. And so it was just, that was the biggest, I wish I still had it in my brain, because like you're talking about, I think there was a point where I watched movies and absorbed movies, and then I think I just stopped. Like my brain was like, I can't handle it anymore. So I can only remember what you remember, and everything now is just, it's going to be hard trying to keep everything fresh. And so I wish I could go back to when I finished. Like Tangled was the last review that I wrote, and just being able to look back and go, I know this whole journey. I know all the little the techniques that they tried and the new technologies that they built, and it was just so fascinating. It's in there somewhere, and again, doing this for your podcast, being able to go back and read my notes and read my reviews. Oh yeah, I did write that. Or oh yeah, they did write that, and find out a bunch of fascinating little tidbits about the movies and just the journey that they took and the journey that we took as viewers. But the biggest thing of all is going from somebody who didn't really like Disney to someone who's just obsessed with it. And again, it's part of every other legacy. It's just a big part of every other movie or every other genre or every other medium that's been made. It's just fascinating looking back on that.
Yeah, what do you think about that, Stanford? About watching the canon?
Oh, I really love what Darin had to say about it. For me, it was a very much a nostalgic thing, just revisiting because I loved Disney movies so much as a child, but I never really stopped loving them. So that's I just enjoyed just the whole experience of rewatching all the movies, and then also completing, like, watching movies that I had never seen or had only seen parts of. For example, like with the package films, I'd seen some of those shorts, in other settings, or maybe like on the Wonderful World of Disney or something, on TV. But being able to understand it better in context has been fascinating and rewarding. And then also just being able to look at it through, I guess, more mature eyes.
Yeah.
Not that I really feel like mature.
We know all Stanford.
But I mean, just because I feel like it's a little more, hopefully a little more educated, and understanding more of film history and filmmaking techniques and whatnot, and really just for the most part just being in awe of these films. I think for the most part the quality is so amazing within the canon that it's just they're just one of my favorite just sets of films.
Right. Well, it's one thing to watch the movies, and it's another thing to know the techniques and the hard work that went into them. So it like enhances your appreciation of them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Did you have a lot, Darin, when you when you did your watch that you hadn't seen?
Oh yeah, a ton. Like I said, I haven't seen, like, I know I'd seen snippets of everything. And again, I just don't know if like my mom showed them to me or family members showed, and it just didn't absorb them the way that I needed to. Again, that's why I think I was just maybe too old to appreciate them. And then I had to get to a point where I was old enough. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
That I could appreciate them that way. It's and I'm not saying I never liked cartoons, because I remember my mom waking me up Saturday morning to watch like the old Hanna-Barbera Godzilla cartoon or Transformers or Voltron or G.I. Joe and all the things that nerdy boys watch. But it's different from watching those versus watching something that is a little more artistic, I guess you could say. Other than just not, I don't want to say cheap, but just like comparatively a small experience on a Saturday morning versus going to a movie theater to watch and be absorbed in the world of animation.
Yeah, I hadn't seen most of the package films when I did my 54 watch. I'd seen, again, segments like you said. I'd seen Peter and the Wolf before. I'd seen Ichabod and Mr. Toad. That one I'd seen both of those. I don't know, a few others, but then I had never seen the Black Cauldron. That had been on my blind spot list for a long time. I had never seen Home on the Range.
I bet you're regretting that now. We have blind spots, and this maybe 70% of this whole canon was a blind spot. I know there are some movies I look at now, and I wish they were still a blind spot. But I don't know. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. You're missing out by not absorbing them all and knowing everything that went into them, I think.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, let's dive in to your top 10 ranking, and then we'll do your bottom 5.
Okay.
And maybe if we have time, we'll do a few other placements. But what is your number 10?
Okay, so my number 10, I've got The Little Mermaid. Little Mermaid, again, I think, it's one of those things where you look at like being a 90s movie fan and watching everything that decade. Quentin Tarantino like came right out of the gate with Pulp Fiction. That was the movie that kind of got me addicted to Tarantino. But
Mhm.
so that's his big movie. But I think he's made better, more quality movies since then. And it's weird comparing Disney to Little Mermaid or Quentin Tarantino to Little Mermaid here, but that it's kind of the same thing. Little Mermaid was my entry way into the Disney canon, and I'll tell you about that in just a sec. But I do think they've made like better movies since then. But as far as like the movie that got me into Disney and the movie that'll always have a special place in my heart is The Little Mermaid, because like I said, I wasn't when it came out in '89. I was big on Batman. I was big on baseball, that kind of stuff, and so I wasn't interested in Little Mermaid at all. So visiting my family in New York like the next year, because I think it came out after like 8 months later. The interesting factoid about the video is that Disney didn't want to release it because they thought it was going to cut into their profits, but it ended up becoming the biggest seller of 1990 and sold over 7 million copies in the first 30 days. And so that was a big thing when it came out in video. And I know that my aunt had a copy, and I just put it in, oh, what is this Little Mermaid? Let's see what this is. And, it was fine. I think like I didn't expect it because the animation was a little more eye poppy. The soundtrack was a little more
Mhm.
lush, and so I thought that was, well, this is interesting. And then the story I like to tell is at the end when Eric like commandeers that sunken the ship, and he steers the mast or whatever into Ursula's stomach and kills her. And I thought, whoa, like violence in a cartoon about a mermaid girl, like this is awesome. And so that was the opening the door of it. But other than the violence at the end, which is still cool, it's just the Menken Ashman score is so different from what you'd expect. Being the kid that I was, it was so far apart from anything I expected. It was good from the outset, and so it just wins you over just from the very first frames, I think.
It really does. I love Fathoms Below,
Yeah.
the whole introduction, and it just draws you in immediately. And they supposedly animated 1 million bubbles,
Oh,
which that attention to detail. If you look at something
by
in
hand, right?
comparison, yeah, oh yeah, this was
Yeah,
the
it was
last
by
hand
hand.
cell animated film that they did. But if you just compare it to me to something like Aquaman, which is supposed to be under the water, it never really felt like it was under the water to me, even though it has some strong visuals. I just didn't feel like these are people in the water because there were no bubbles. And so I don't know. I just feel like that attention to detail makes such a
Yeah.
difference. What I have it at number 2. I go back and forth between Beauty and the Beast. I think it's actually probably a better movie,
Hmm.
but and they both have huge nostalgia for me, both
Yeah.
Beauty and the Beast and The Little Mermaid.
Right.
But The Little Mermaid was kind of the first movie I ever loved, so it I go back and forth between them. They're basically a tie. They're my
That's a good movie.
co-favorites.
That's a good one to have as your top, like your top or your second. So
I love the music in both so much, and I know a lot of people don't like Ariel. I like Ariel as a character. I think she's got some spunk in her, which I appreciate.
that's weird. Why do
But
they like Ariel? I think you've said that before, but why?
yeah, I people think she's bratty, but
She's a teenager, right?
teenager, and her father isn't exactly helpful in the situation. I mean,
Well,
it's
he's the
just
father of
so
a teenager. That's how he's going to treat her. So that's weird. That's a weird
yeah,
criticism of it because I just think it's for mermaid people. It's very
yeah.
naturalistic.
I also think that a lot of people do compare her to Belle because Belle is literally the exact opposite. Belle
Yeah.
gives up everything for her father.
Right.
She she gives up her freedom for her father. And so but I enjoy both. I do. I don't know. What do you think, Stanford?
Oh, I love The Little Mermaid. I have it at number 12, but like my top 15 or top 20, they're all kind of like number one. By
Yeah.
the way, what I mean? It's really hard. Not to say that it's so hard to rank that's an excuse, but just like it's hard to rank. I mean,
No, it
particularly with something that
is.
you really love.
It's
But
hard to pick among favorites. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
I think The Little Mermaid is just terrific. I think that it's Howard Ashman and Alan Menken both with the music and with
Hmm.
the story work that they
Hey
you know
Spencer!
brought to the film
Yeah.
or helped with in the
Mhm.
making of the film, because it's so Disney yet it's so fresh
Yeah.
and original and joyous and wonderful and emotional, and I just remember being absolutely blown away when I saw it in the
Mhm.
theater.
Well,
I guess I
the thing is when you watch it, like if you watch them in order, I know you guys have done like different ways of watching it, but like if you know Disney trying to figure themselves out, and what was the movie that came before this? It was Oliver and Company,
all
right?
around
Is that the movie
company.
Yeah.
that? And like we'll get to that one, but seriously, it's like when Little Mermaid hits, it's like what is this? Like this is a like an
Yeah,
evolutionary step. How did we go from that movie to this movie within the first few frames? And the movie doesn't let up. Again, I don't
no,
have Little Mermaid as like it's not my top, but it's I couldn't not put it in my top 10 somehow
Yeah.
just because it's such a kick in the teeth to anything that
Mhm.
was being done
yeah,
at the time, stateside anyway.
yep.
Yeah, and Jodie Benson, oh, I just love her so much. She's the best voice ever.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, what do you have at number 9?
Okay, well, number 9, it surprised me again. Going through, I'm not really a big rankings person, so like you guys owe me big time for doing this. It kind of gives me, like you said, it's an existential nightmare because I can put together this list of 60 movies. If I go back to, and again, what I did for the blog is I graded them, so I gave them letter grades, so that was a little
Yeah,
easier. If I hadn't have given these grades, it would have been a nightmare because it would have taken me. I would have said, Rachel, we need to postpone this by like 3 months because I'm not going to have my list ready. But
I
like
get it.
literally, I could put this list together, and tomorrow it'll be different because I'm going to be different.
Yeah.
That's why I have a hard time with this list. But what surprised me is like going through and seeing how many movies I give A's, seeing how many movies I give B's, seeing the one movie I gave an F. You know, it's just this weird way of looking at it. And I was surprised because Moana, I gave an A minus technically. I didn't review it, but like going back and looking, yeah, A minus, that's a good grade for Moana. So that
Mhm.
automatically got it, like boosted it above Little Mermaid. And I thought, wow, like Moana is that high on my list? Because if you when we get done with this list here, you'll see that most of my movies are from like the first 10, 15 years or 10, 20 years of them being in business because I just got addicted. I'm going to be a huge on the history of it. That's always going to tie in with my view, with my how I
Mhm.
view the movie itself. So it was weird seeing Moana be one of the newer ones, be that high on my list. But again, it's like the Little Mermaid. It's like so we Tangled was great. Don't get me wrong, but then you had like they kind of settled in a groove. You have Frozen that became a big hit, but Moana is like a breath of fresh air with the Lin-Manuel Miranda score and the songs. Right? It's just a step above what I've been used to hearing, and then the story. Lindsay Ellis does a video where she says that Moana is basically a remake of Pocahontas. And if you look at a lot of the story beats, a lot of them are exactly the same, but it's done in a way that's not cloying. It's done in a way that's not, you know what I mean, trying to
Yeah.
overdo it. Moana is just a nice, natural. Um, I feel bad. What's the actress's name
So
who
is
plays Moana?
Kavala, I
Yeah,
think is how
Ali
you
Cravalho,
pronounce
I
it.
think.
Yeah.
She is a doll. She is amazing. Like her
Amazing.
voice work, I'm in love with her voice, and so just that.
Yeah.
But I have Dwayne the Rock Johnson in there singing a song, doing fine, all this stuff, and just the story of when she's able to just talk to and be able to reach the heart of the sea and be able to get to her that way. It's just it's an enriching, empowering movie without it telling you that it's trying to be empowering. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, totally.
So that Moana is your number 9 then.
Yeah, Moana's number 9,
Okay.
which again surprised me. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Moana I have at 11. So pretty high too for me. I really enjoy it. I think the ending's really emotional. I think that it almost feels I compared it in my review to the Odyssey actually, because in the
Hmm.
way that in the Odyssey they have all these different kind of stops along the way
Yeah.
that challenge them. I kind of feel like that's sort of the same way with like the coconut pirates, and then there's the shiny
Hmm.
crab, and there's sort of just all these little obstacles along the way to the end result.
Yeah, that's a good tie-in. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So where do you have Moana, Stanford?
I have Moana at 25, and that's not a slam to Moana because it's a movie that I love. I think that Ron and John, that John Musker and Ron Clements they got to make another kind of their final movie at Disney, and have it be such a home run.
Yeah,
I think both artistically and financially, etc. But but they just made such a good movie. It's such a great story. The animation is spectacular. I think I love the music, and I thought that how they chose to make it was so interesting, bringing in the 3 different song writers. Anyway, terrific movie. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it's a good looking back and a looking forward at the same time, it seems like.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of Rachel's reviews? Do you look forward to Family Movie Night, Female Film Critics panels, or the Talking Disney podcast? If so, please consider supporting the podcast by becoming a Patreon. As a patron, you get to access monthly events such as the watch-alongs and Q&As, where you get to talk to stars and find out the behind the scenes of the movie making industry. And you can pick what I review for Family Movie Night or even become a guest on the podcast. Podcasts and YouTube channels are expensive, and I really, really could use your help. I would so appreciate it. You also get to be a member of the Facebook group where we talk about all the films that we're seeing, and we have so much fun. Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies and select one of the Rachel's fan tiers. That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies. So what do you have at 8?
So at 8, I've got Aladdin. Again, it's weird that 5 of my movies are from the first 20 years, and 3 of my movies are from the Renaissance, and 2 of my movies are just from the last 12 years. But Aladdin is, I don't want to sound like I'm nitpicking it. I think Aladdin is great. It's got the Howard Ashman, Alan Menken score, at least, or songs, at least half of them. I don't know. I don't think Tim Rice is as good as a lyricist as Howard Ashman. I think Howard Ashman has a magic, and Tim Rice is good, but he, like, talking about every moment, red letter. There's just some odd lyric choices that don't quite, and so kids are kind of, well, what does red letter mean? Whereas Howard Ashman would not, you wouldn't think that way if you're a kid about it. They're understandable and they're magic from the very beginning. So Aladdin is fine. I like Aladdin. I like Jasmine. I like all the characters. I just think that the story is fine. The music is fine. But as soon as Robin Williams shows up, that's what makes the movie the movie. I don't know if that makes any sense. Robin Williams shows up and he takes that thing to a new level. I don't know how Eric Goldberg kept up with him for that. The way that he's able to keep up with him for the animation, it's mind-boggling. I don't know how he did that. Like, his work is just as good as Robin Williams' voice work, being able to keep up with that. And I think it's just funny because Robin Williams is so good that when he settles down and tries to do plot stuff, and they have the argument about, like, set me free now and all that stuff, it doesn't have the same manic energy because you can tell it's Williams trying to, I've got to settle down and I've got to do the plot now. I can't do my normal thing. So I don't know. Aladdin is great. I just think that once Williams shows up, that's what it takes it from being a good movie to a great movie. I don't know if that makes any sense. It's just.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. What is red letter with that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Every moment, red letter.
In the movie.
Yeah, it's in the movie. It's during a whole new world.
It's a whole new world. In the lyrics, every moment, red letter.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
I never even noticed that.
But it's really that it really is a good point, Darin. I think definitely Howard Ashman had a real gift, for that.
Yeah.
And Tim Rice, of course, has the resume and the experience, and he can do wonderful work too. But there was just something I think extra special about the Howard Ashman songs.
Well, and you can tell because every time they do a new version of Beauty and the Beast without his input and without his songs, to me, I think something gets lost a little bit because it doesn't. Yeah. It's not up to the same, not quite to the same level.
Well, that's why I think the Aladdin Broadway musical is better than a lot of the other Disney Broadway musicals because they had some leftover songs from Howard Ashman. Proud of your boy, particularly.
Right.
And it's just different. Most of the time, especially in the Little Mermaid adaptation, that the new songs, I'm just like, the Afro.
Right. They don't quite have spirits the same way. Right.
I'm making no, but it's a no for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. What is your number 7?
So I've got Tangled as my number 7. Mm-hmm. Again, doing it as watching Disney try to figure themselves out, especially during, it's hard for me to tell whether the package films were more excruciating to watch or whether the like Dinosaur and Chicken Little and Treasure Planet, all that when they're trying to figure out what to do. I don't know if that was more excruciating.
The
But
latter.
okay, we can come back to that.
We can talk about
So, though, on your ranking,
Right. What was
you
that?
got it. Well, no, you had dinosaur. You have dinosaur pretty high, at least in my opinion.
Yeah,
I don't know what you didn't number them, so I don't know where it is, but it's like in the top part of the lower quadrant.
I've got it as 44 is what I have on my list. So to me, it's not that high. I like the animation, and I think you've talked about it a lot. Like this is a tangent, obviously, but Dinosaur, the first 10 minutes with that soaring James Newton Howard score, it's such a beautiful piece of work. And then as soon as the characters open their mouths and start talking, it's like that meme of Timon from The Lion King. You know, when he finds out that the two lions are friends, and he just has that. He's just deflated. It's like that for the rest of the movie, but the animation, the character movements still stick out. So that's the only thing that really works for me in Dinosaur. So I'm sorry it's so high there. But talking about going back to Tangled, Princess and the Frog was the year before, and they tried to go back to 2D animation, and it didn't quite hit the way they wanted. So they were still trying to figure themselves out. It's just weird. Like they went back and thought, okay, well, I guess what we need to do fairy tales, which made us famous in the first place, but let's do CG versions of it. But let's tie in like a 2D look to the animation. And so it took them from like 1937 to 2010 to realize, oh, we just still need to do fairy tale movies, but we just need to do them with CG instead of Chicken Little or whatever the crap. You know what I mean? It's like, let's do what we do, but let's just adapt it to new animation. That's what Tangled does. Obviously, it has the great character work, but the animation is again CG gorgeous, but it still sticks to those tried and true the storytelling techniques that they've been doing from the beginning. And it's just funny when you watch all of them in a row and then you write Tangled as your last review of the project you're doing, and then you're like, this is the journey that they've taken from fairy tales to fairy tales. And it's just weird that it took Treasure Planet and all those Home on the Range and all those movies in there to figure themselves out, just to kind of go back to the drawing board, but updated with newfangled technology.
Yeah, I agree. I had a similar experience because I was just down on Disney. I was very disappointed in Princess and the Frog. And so I was like, I don't know. And the trailers for Tangled weren't great. They were kind of silly.
Yeah.
And so I went and took my younger sister, and I was just dazzled by it. I absolutely loved it. And I still love it to this day. It's my number 3. I think it's one of my favorite movies. If I were making, I forget where it made in my top 50 movies of all time, but it was definitely on there.
Well, I also want to point out that relationship between Rapunzel and I love that she calls him Eugene, first of all.
Oh, yeah.
That she's able to cut
cute
through that. But at the end, when he sacrifices and he gets stabbed and he cuts her hair, and the whole thing. Hopefully, people that are listening to this have seen Tangled. But obviously, he dies. But there's that moment of quiet, when they both realize what they're missing because it's too late or whatever, and they have this long moment of silence that just really hits you in the gut, and it's just. I don't know, just that they took the time to do that. Good. It's just so well done. On top of all the funny stuff with the horse and everything. It's a very human cartoon.
Yeah. What about you, Stanford? What do you think about Tangled? I know we've talked about it.
I adore Tangled. I have it at number 10. And I just as Darin was saying, I just finally feel like Disney figured out how to do a CG movie and then also make a CG fairy tale that's a Disney movie. And it's so good in every regard, so funny, so emotional. As we've talked, kind of hit on the humor's so good. I really like the music. I know some people don't necessarily like the music. I saw Alan Menken do a one-man show where he's just basically, sitting at a piano. I think you saw that at this D23, Rachel, right?
Yeah.
I saw it. I didn't see it there. It was at another event, but I think it was probably a very similar style of show. But when he got to the Tangled portion of the program, he was inspired by Rapunzel's long hair, and it made him think of Joni Mitchell and kind of 70s and folk music, and that you really get that in the opening number, "A World of My Life" began with all the guitar and whatnot that's in that and in that piece. But anyway,
That's
I,
true.
I digress. But I love everything about Tangled. Oh, the one other thing too, I love that scene that you were talking about, Darren, when Mother Gothel's fallen out of the tower, thankfully, finally, and they're having that quiet moment together, and then the tear, drops out and ends up healing him. But I also love the scene when Rapunzel gets reunited with her parents.
So well done.
That one just makes me bawl every time, and it's so well done. There's not a word of dialogue, and it's just beautiful. They really aced that movie.
Well, that's the kind of thing where, regardless of what the animation looks like, regardless of what format you're using, the story and the characters sell that. I don't care what the animation looked like. It could look like the little, I don't know, just some crappy animation, some offshoot, or the little bootleg things in the Chippendale, that movie, those kind of things. You could have animation like that, but if the story works, like Entangled, it doesn't matter what the animation is. It's just, it took people like, oh, this is CG, I'll pay attention. It's just strange that's what they focused on.
Yeah. We were just on the Criterion Project. We just covered a movie called Coma the Musical. It's not animated, but they made it for $15,000. And it's so charming and great. I mean, yeah, you can, especially in the sound mix, you can hear, you can tell, but it doesn't matter. At least to me, it doesn't matter if I'm enjoying the songs and the story, and then that's what matters to me. But
right, yeah.
But what is your number 6?
Okay, well, speaking of great storytelling, I've got The Lion King. That's going to be the highest rated newer movie on my list, to the chagrin of a lot of people probably. But Lion King was, when you're caught up, you have that 1, 2, 3 punch of Little Mermaid, then Beauty and the Beast, or 4 punch, and then Aladdin, then Lion King. When they did those little previews, like before Beauty and the Beast, they showed an Aladdin preview, and then before Aladdin, they showed Circle of Life as the preview for Lion King.
Yeah.
And just the animation of those 3.5 minutes of the Lion King, like you watched that in a theater for Beauty and the Beast, and you thought, oh, the next one's going to be even better than this. And I haven't even watched Beauty and the Beast. That's kind of what goes through your head when you're watching it. I love too that it's funny because when you look at Little Mermaid, they also thought that was going to be their second tier movie. So they focused on Oliver and Company to make that their the main focus. And so when Little Mermaid comes up, it makes like 32 million more than Oliver and Company. That kind of was a wake up call. It was the same thing for Lion King when they used it as their B project, and they focused all their top animators, and they had Menken working on Pocahontas, and they thought that was going to be their meal ticket. And then this movie comes out, and it has like the mythic storytelling. It has the animals, first of all, so it lets you do all these, like it lets you do Hamlet, it lets you do all these themes that are so dark for kids, but since they're done from an animal's perspective, it's okay for kids to watch. And so they're able to tackle these giant themes, and because they're able to do it so well with the humor and with the songs, it grossed like 650 million more than Pocahontas did. That is wild.
Yeah.
Just because they're able to buckle down and tell a good mythic story that. And, the criticism is that as soon as Mufasa dies, it kind of loses some stuff. It kind of becomes jokey joke. And that's true. I think the strongest stuff is in the beginning. And then they have like pepper and a lot of really strong stuff toward the end, especially when Simba's talking with Mufasa in the sky, in the clouds. That hits me really hard as somebody who didn't grow up with a dad.
I love that scene so much.
I do too. That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, almost.
Just so
remarkable.
I love themes of forgiveness in stories. That's when it almost always rings true. And so when he screams out the whole, "You promise you'd always be there," it gets me every time. It's so good. And I couldn't believe they didn't include that in the new version. But we won't talk about that.
Please, it's not.
Please. What a horrible.
I remember when I was going out of the screening, the guy was like, "What did you think?" I was like, not so much. Didn't like it. He was like, "Really? Yeah, it wasn't great." But I love Lion King. I think it's great. And whoever said that about it getting jokey is ridiculous. You've literally just had a main character die in a horrible stampede. Like you need some
levity.
comic relief. I mean, there
Yeah.
has to be a Falstaff type character in every Shakespeare play. Like, you need to have a break and breathe. And I don't care what anybody says. That Hakuna Matata, when that came out, that was hilarious. Everyone thought it was so funny.
Well, they're getting Simba addicted to the easy life, right? He has all the
Yeah.
responsibilities, and his father's just died, and so getting caught up with Timon and Pumbaa is like, oh, this is
Mhm.
much better. But that's the whole point. He can't run from his destiny, I guess. He can't run from being
Yeah.
part of that circle. So I do think that the humor serves a certain narrative
Yeah.
function.
No, it does. I guess the only nitpick I have is as far as humor is I don't really love I can see what's happening and they don't have a clue. I wish they just had to be a romantic song. We don't need that
Went for a
intro.
full on, right?
But other than that, but Stanford, what about you? What's one of your favorite things about Lion King?
Well, as Darin was talking about, that Lion King trailer that was in front of Aladdin was so jaw dropping for me, and then just to see, and then also just then you see it within the context of the film. That circle
Yeah.
of life scene is just stunning, and I never tire of it.
Mhm.
And I I have so much respect for the Lion King. Overall I quite like all the music that Elton John did. With a couple of exceptions, but like I remember one of my friends, anytime it was I just can't wait to be king scene was the one that would push her over the edge. She's just like, oh, I can't stand this. I don't necessarily feel that way because I quite like the animation, but anyway.
I think it's a cute song. I don't mind it. I mean, and Be Prepared is so great.
Well, the way that they infuse like the Nazi imagery to Be Prepared is
yeah.
just
Really?
So good.
But again, because it's animals, you're able to get away with so much. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's already talked about the scene when Simba is talking to Mufasa, up in the sky. That's another one that I bawl every
It's
time.
so good. Yeah.
So well performed, right?
I have it at 8, so I'm there with you.
Okay.
I have it. I think sorry if I already said I have it at 21, but then again, that's not a slam. It's just like how do I
so many good movies, yeah.
Yeah. But it's one I respect a lot. Love it.
All right. So what's your number 5?
Okay, so again, I think who was it? Was it Sean or was it Dave Lee that was talking about he gets a lot of flack because he likes the older ones better than the newer ones?
It was Dave, yeah.
Okay, and again, I'm the same. Like I said before, just the history of it and the way that Walt was pushing those limits and trying to tell stories while also pushing the I guess the goalpost of where animation could land. I'm just in awe of my top 5 just because of the audacity of them and the bravery of them. So number 5, I've got Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. Not because obviously the story is a little Snow White and Prince Charming. They're a little. I think you said before her voice is a little too squeaky, stuff like that. He's not much of a character. They're more just archetypes, I guess you could say. But the way that it's just tried and true storytelling. It's just let's stick to it, storytelling. Let's make sure that everything works. That's how it is. And then watching. Again, you have to put yourself in the context of when this movie was made. You can't watch it from a 2022 perspective and think it's going to stand up to, 1937 animation is going to stand up to 2022. You can't do that. It's not fair. So to me, I look at it as this is what they were trying to accomplish. And this is the animation and for the time, from the way the witch moves and Snow, they were able to do the, what is it, rotoscoping? What is it called where they just trace over the
rotoscoping. I have it at 10. I love the animation. I love the whole scene where she's brewing the spell and you get like this like cool swirling like purple and green. And I love the whole scene in the forest. It's really spooky and I think it works. And so, I really enjoy it. The singing is a little not my favorite, but I like the songs. So for me, it's a 10. I think it kind of does everything you want a movie to do. It has emotion, it has scares, it has humor. It's kind of got a little bit of everything.
And the darkness too for adults, like kids will enjoy it, but it's weird because there's difference in animation between the dwarves and between Snow White and the Witch, but I think that just adds to like the magic realism of it, I guess you could say, or the fairy tale quality is like the dwarves are not quite as human, but I don't think they're meant to be
Yeah.
But it's all also well thought out. And yeah, they have scenes where animals are
Mhm.
cavorting in the forest and stuff like that. But it's showing off what animation can do, and it's
Yeah.
vibrant and it's impressive from that viewpoint.
Yeah. Where do you have it, Stanford?
I'm with Darren. I have it at number 5. I think it's just one of the best Disney movies ever, and
Mhm.
I'm kind of the one to beat.
Yeah.
It's the one
It
that started it all, right?
well, exactly. And for me, I mean, the artistically, it's absolutely stunning. I love Snow White's optimistic character, and here she like, that's that kind of scary scheme through the forest that you just brought up, Rach. That then she kind of gets her wits about her again, and she sings with a smile and a song, and you're just like, this is so amazing. This is like, I mean, it's a life lesson, and
Mhm.
it's wonderful art, and her forest friends. I mean, hello. I mean, any movie that has forest friends, I love. Yeah, any Disney movie because all of Snow White. Anyway, I think it's
All right.
fantastic.
What is your number 4?
Number 4, I know you guys don't have it quite as high in yours, but I've got Bambi as my number 4. It's just so gentle.
Mhm.
If we're going to talk about dinosaur, if we're going to, I'm going to bring another movie in it from another studio. If we're going to talk about Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron, Bambi is basically, it's a coming of age story, right? It's told in like different like fits and starts, and so
Mhm.
Bambi learns different things. But what's awesome and what's so beautiful about Bambi is that it doesn't talk down to the kids. Like in Dinosaur, obviously we talked about how the dinosaurs have to talk. Like how amazing! I think the story with Dinosaur is that Paul Verhoeven of RoboCop fame, he was going to do He was going to do Dinosaur. He was going to animate it with Phil Tippett, and then when Jurassic Park came out, they realized that probably wasn't the way they wanted to go. But either way, imagine the Dinosaur, the movie, with no dialogue, with it just being purely visual. I
Mhm.
know it'd be hard for kids to watch. And then again, skipping to Spirit, Stallion, and Cimarron, that's got the Matt Damon narration. But again, there are parts of it that are like purely visual and the kid and you get it. But then there are other parts where Matt Damon has to explain everything to you. And to me, it's like, come on, like I get it. Like and what Bambi does is it does what what my brain needs it to do. It says this is what's happening. The mom dies, but they don't flat out say it. The dad just comes in and says you're going to be with me now. And so it's kind of like, Rachel, I know that you and I love Prince of Egypt, and hopefully Stanford loves Prince of
Oh,
Egypt. I
I
haven't heard
absolutely
it.
love it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I remember in Prince of Egypt when they're doing the death of the firstborn, and in a crowded theater,
Oh,
looking down and seeing kids having conversations with their parents about what was happening. And to me, I thought that's what animation should really do. Don't talk down to your kids. They can get it. They can have conversations about these giant or these huge themes or adult ideas that are going on. And Bambi it has
yeah.
Thumper obviously as the comic, and there's no character in the Disney canon I think that brings me joy like Thumper brings me joy.
I
But
know.
even with Thumper in there, it's just an awe-inspiring, beautiful look at what it's like to come of age in a world that you don't understand. You don't always have people there to explain it to you. I think the movie just gets it perfectly.
Yeah, it's so cute. And as far as like kids, I actually think that they wouldn't need the dialogue because I remember my little siblings, when they were little, we had a whole movie that was just watching farm animals for like an hour and a half, and they were riveted.
Yeah.
It's like, no story, no. I mean, so I think if it was dinosaurs, it would be
Yeah,
even
come
more.
on.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
there was they had another one where it was just watching construction.
Hmm.
And again, they loved
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, come on.
It was like,
Kids
it's
are
called
smarter
Big
than that.
Trucks, the movie.
So jeez.
Yeah. All right. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
What is your number 3? I think is where we're at. Yeah, 3.
Okay, number 3. I want to get your guys' perspective because I know that Pinocchio is my number 3. And you guys have said that this, or Stanford at least, has said that the story doesn't really work for him. What is it exactly about the story that doesn't work for you, Stanford?
I think a lot of it, Darin, is carryover from childhood. It was just so scary, particularly the whole the combination of Pleasure Island and Monster the Whale.
Yeah,
scared the absolute crap out of me when I was a kid, and I don't know. So there's that. However, watching it as an adult, I'm over that. Now, at least I hope I am. But but I'm in absolute awe of the artistry, and so I have Pinocchio still at 22, but it's one of those movies that I can see why people love it, and also I think why by many consider it to be one of the finest, if not the finest, animated film from the Walt Disney Studios because of its just absolute tremendous artistry. I still can't necessarily get over how much I just don't really love, and I guess it just boils down to just like personal enjoyment, as far as just ranking, and that's what it kind of had to come down to. Particularly with this, like my top 25, just like what do I really enjoy or not enjoy? But that's it, and I admit it's a bit immature and kind of shallow. where I'm coming from.
Well,
I'm being honest.
25, so because I'm the same. They turning into the donkey scene is so terrifying. I just think that, and maybe we could talk for just a second about this trailer that released today as a recording for the live action, but I just can't imagine that. I don't think that we'll even have Pleasure Island in the movie. I just can't imagine that being in a modern.
Rachel, because there's a scene where like that plank comes down off of a ship, what looks like a ship. I think it's a bunch of little boys going to Pleasure Island. But anyway, I'm just saying.
I just can't imagine in live action kids turning into donkeys. That'd be so terrifying.
Well, if you're going to take like some images of your childhood that really scared the living crap out of you, like the Lampwick turning into a donkey and it's animated. Yeah. That's what's crazy. It's one of the scariest things.
Look at the animation, how good.
Yeah, it's the animation, but it's also like he doesn't realize it. You're looking at it from Pinocchio's perspective, like him turning. And finally, when Lampwick gets it, the way that he freaks out and he screams for his mom, it's like that's horrifying because you're in that situation.
Yeah,
the panic in his voice is just chilling.
The filmmaking is that the music and the way that they've edited that scene. I mean, it is just you get goosebumps just thinking about it. It's so scary.
Because the whole thing here is it's all subjective, right? We're all going to have different lists. So I don't blame. I'm not going to look at your guys' list and say, "Oh, you've got Pinocchio at 25. I can't talk to you." It's not like that. Because all these movies are going to hit you in a different way. I just think like as a second movie, instead of going for the princess route, he went and told this story. And so
it's amazing.
And the way that they use the multi-plane cameras, I know they used it for Snow White, but they had as many as 12 layers of animation. There's a shot at the beginning when you get like a establishing shot of the town, and it zooms in and it has birds and it goes like through the see people. And even from today, I look at that and go, that is amazing. Yeah. That's astounding.
And I want to go. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Darin. I want to talk to the animators and learn more how they did that underwater animation when Pinocchio and the cricketer looking for Monstro. I mean, looking for Geppetto, clearly, but I mean, how they get. I mean, you're underwater.
Yeah.
I mean, not only are you getting the bazillion bubbles, you're getting kind of that distorted focus.
Yeah.
I don't know how they did it.
It's amazing.
I talk about how go ahead.
Sorry. How traumatic is that scene when Pinocchio is face down in the water?
Oh, another childhood trauma.
Obviously, I want to talk about the fairy tale aspect, but talking about the water and the FX animation, like Rachel, speaking of bubbles, do you feel like they're underwater doing that monster stuff with the effects?
Yeah, it's phenomenal. The monster scene is it's still holds up to this day. It's so
Oh
good.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
so thrilling.
Right. As far as like the scariness goes, I think like when that's fairy tales, right? It's like,
Yeah,
the
good point.
Little Mermaid, her dancing for the prince until her feet bleed, or Cinderella, the sisters, what do they chop off pieces of their feet, to
Yeah.
fit into the, and in Pinocchio, the story, what is it? Who's the guy that wrote it?
Carlo Collodi, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken.
In the Adventures of Pinocchio, Pinocchio gets mad at Jiminy Cricket and throws a hammer at him and squishes him. Like he kills him in the book. So
I've heard that.
as dark as the movie goes, as the book goes, even I just think like there's just, and the way the kids don't turn back, you never find out. That's the tantalizing, scary part about, because they're still out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
start smoking and drinking, you're going to turn to.
Crazy.
It's
Yeah.
just so mythic and it's so primal. The storytelling and the animation, again, pushing those limits. It's the second movie out of the
Mhm.
gate, and it's just, I love Pinocchio. It's just, it
Yeah.
has everything I'm looking for.
And I've grown to appreciate it a lot more the more I've watched it. And even though it's 25 on my ranking,
Yeah.
it beat out a lot of other films.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've just got nothing but respect
Yeah.
for Pinocchio.
But what do you have
And-
for 2?
Well, let's go ahead and geek out because I've got Beauty and the Beast as my number 2.
All right.
I know that's your guys' number 1. I just, if you have Little Mermaid and it kind of opens your eyes, like Beauty and the Beast is the one that gouges your eyes out, like and sticks forks in your ears. It's just sonically and visually, Beauty and the Beast, again, it's an evolution. And it's, there's one more movie obviously that I think beats it as far as animation goes, but it just is so supple and it's so rich, and the score is so, I wrote in my review, it's like the score, holy crap, the score, it's like, it's so Broadway ready and it's beautifully done. Everything is of a piece in Beauty and the Beast. I don't think it ever makes a wrong move. And obviously, and everything that the live action remake did, I think it just took away that magic. And that's what made me so angry about the live action version. It's just, it has to over explain everything, and it has to give Gaston PTSD. And it's like, why? Why do you need to put this stuff in there? It's a fairy tale, and it suits all those little, the nooks and crannies that fairy tales kind of explore.
Yeah, don't even get me started on that.
No,
But, yeah,
But we hate the remake. That's all I care about. You can put Pinocchio as low as you want. But let's all agree to hate that remake. Ugh.
But I love Beauty and the Beast. I love the songs. I love the story. The beauty is found within. I love the fact that people can change. That we shouldn't necessarily, I guess, hold a grudge. That we allow people to grow. And I love that. I love all the side characters are so good. And it's just one of the great movies I think ever made.
Absolutely.
I totally agree. It's my number 1. I love it so, but I am so stoked about your number 1, Darin. I am so stoked.
Tell us your number 1. Drum roll.
Sleeping Beauty is my number 1.
Yay!
In my review, if Sleeping Beauty, if I had one movie to take on it with me to a deserted island, one Disney film, it would be Sleeping Beauty. I just think, and again, I'm going to talk about Fantasia for a little bit here, which I don't rank quite as high as most other people. Disney was trying to push limits. He was trying to make art, but also trying to tell stories. I think when he set Fantasia to classical music, that was a brilliant idea. My problem with Fantasia is that it's animation, but there's no story to involve me. And so it constantly puts me to sleep. Every time I try to watch Fantasia, I fall asleep at least twice just because I drift off. It's so long, and it's so, as far as story goes, I need to have a narrative involve me. I just think with Sleeping Beauty, first of all, he's able to take that Tchaikovsky ballet, and the fact that he sets the whole movie, he doesn't write new songs, they just put lyrics to it. But he sets that Tchaikovsky score to this animation, so that accomplishes, I think, what he was trying to do with Fantasia. It's like what works about it. And then also, because I know like Beauty and the Beast is gorgeous to look at, Lion King is gorgeous, you know, Tangled is gorgeous, all these movies. But if you were to think about museums, you know how you go into a museum, like when you watch Beauty and the Beast, you kind of absorb everything as it goes. But with Sleeping Beauty, I kind of approach it as like I would approach it at a museum. Like you see a painting, I want to stop and I want to look at every frame that's in front of me. I want to look at the aesthetics of it. I want to look at all the thought that went into it. Every single shot in Sleeping Beauty is that to me. It's got a vertical horizontal line aesthetic. Like you can look at it and see where everybody's lines and how everything is set within the frame. It's just such a gorgeous movie, and it does have the comic relief. It does have all like the lovey-dovey. It does have the songs. It does have Maleficent, obviously, as the villainess you love to hate, all those things. But on top of that, it's art. Like I would say, every frame of this thing is art. You can look at this. You can take any frame, and it's just gorgeous to look at. That's the aesthetic, and I think it's my number one because I think that's what Disney was aiming for. All the things that you read about, all the things that he wanted to accomplish. I think he accomplishes it with Sleeping Beauty. I just think it's a gorgeous. Oh, I don't know. I'm in love with this movie. I want to drink every frame of it in. I don't know how else to explain that.
Yeah, I mean, I do think you could literally frame every single frame of this movie. I have it at 7. I really love it. I mean,
I have it at 7 too.
Yeah, I have to super nitpick. The Scump scene I think goes on a little too long, but other than that, I really love it. I love the fairies. I love the music, as you said. I think Philip is a great prince.
Yep.
So I'm with you.
Archetypes, right? I mean, obviously, like people kind of push back and say that Briar Rose and Philip aren't really characters. And again, she doesn't talk for the last half hour. Like she goes silent when she finds out what's going on. But again, it's they're just pawns in this good versus evil like battle that's going on. It's the fairies versus Maleficent.
I disagree with that about Philip, people who say that, because he's like shows some spirit. He says this isn't the 14th century, right? Yeah. He has that whole debate with his dad. He has that whole scene with Maleficent where she chains him up and so much for our true love, and I think he shows some real spirit. Yeah. I disagree with people that think he's a bland prince. Compared to Snow White and Cinderella, he's way better.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. I'm glad.
Yeah. Do you agree about Philip Stanford?
Yeah. I don't really care. Sorry. I am all about the art in this movie.
Yeah.
It's just I am so blown away with how just as Darin described it so well. I mean, and you too, Rachel. I mean, every single shot is so gorgeous. I've had just the kind of pleasure of going to a couple of museum exhibits where they had some Ivan Earl original art on display, some of his background art.
Yeah.
And it's so gorgeous. You just can't, you can't believe it. And a thrill was being able to see Sleeping Beauty on the big screen.
Oh.
They showed it at one of the Turner Classic Film Festivals a few years ago. And it was like the favorite thing I saw, being able to see it on the big screen, just a beautiful projection is, digital projection. And it was just stunning. I kind of want to see it in 70 millimeter, over that, whatever they were calling it, back in the day.
I would love that.
Yeah.
It was the first movie to be released in 70 millimeter, like just the widescreen compositions.
Widescreen.
Oh my gosh.
It's just absolutely. It's gorgeous. It's just one of my all-time favorites. I love it.
Yeah, perfect, great.
Well, I know we're running over time, but let's just real quick. Why don't you kind of list off and maybe give us a little bit of explanation of your bottom 5?
I'm sorry, Stanford.
Hey, it's okay. I think I'm the only person who likes that movie, and I'll own it. And I respect your opinion.
Yeah, rescue.
And Rachel's opinion.
Well, again, I tweeted at you that Home on the Range is my rescue. I just want to tell you just a little story. When I was putting together this list, had like the grade that I gave Home on the Range, put it like above certain movies that I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I can't put this movie above like Mulan. I can't put this movie above, Frozen or Alice in Wonderland. So I had to lower my ranking of Home on the Range, regardless of the grade that I gave, just because it doesn't like have the lasting power of a lot of other movies. But Rescuers I just think the animation is just, they went from the Xeroxing and they had like a step above. They were able to trace it better. So, but it's still, I'm sorry, Stan, it's one of the ugliest Disney movies I've seen.
It's all fair.
And I'm just, because I like the Zsa Zsa Gabor and the Bob Newhart characters, I'm happy that a Rescuers Down Under exists, so I don't have to defend the Rescuers. I just think the story is a little languid and it's really slow, but that's just, it's subjective. So that's my number 56.
See, I think this is really funny because you said you have it at 56.
Yeah.
Right? I have it at 54. So we found someone who dislikes the Rescuers more than me.
With regret, because I hate when I nitpick something that somebody else likes.
Oh no! Thank you for being so kind, but no, I
wish I could stand with you, but I can't.
Did you know it was? Did you know it was so not people's favorite? Before we started this podcast, Stanford.
Oh no! I mean, not really, but then it also. But I'm not surprised because it's in a way it's kind of an obscure movie in the canon,
Yeah.
Not that it's not just even though it's the now Frozen has had a sequel, but other than Wreck-It Ralph, but it was the first animated film that had a sequel,
right?
Just within the Disney animation stuff.
Right.
So anyway,
so what do you have next?
57, I've got Treasure Planet. I know there's a lot of people that like it. There's a movement, I guess, on Twitter where people look at a movie and think, oh, well, it's different, so automatically that makes it good. And I'm like, no, it has to be good whether it's different. I know Treasure Planet tries to do a different thing. It tries to do the steampunk thing. It tries to do a sci-fi twist on Treasure Island. I just think it's so dull. Like, even the music score is dull. The characters are dull. Once you hear that they're going to do Treasure Planet in space, you're like, oh, so they're going to give, like, Long John Silver a mechanical leg, and they do that. They hit all the beats that you expect them to be. There's just no surprise to Treasure Planet for me. It doesn't work for me at all. So, but the animation,
agree. I have it at 44.
Yeah,
I have it at 40. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think I have it in the 40s too. It's
just
it's not great.
Yeah, needs more life. And then for number 58, I know that we're all kind of in agreement on this one. I've got Chicken Little as my next second or third to worst.
Rough.
Just the way that again, Disney's trying to figure themselves out. It seems to me that they thought, oh, well, DreamWorks is doing like pop culture references. We'll do that, but at Disney. And it's like, no, don't do that. Like we need a story first. And it's got humor that just isn't my humor. The part where Chicken Little's trying to show the whole town where the aliens are and the mayor or something stops and goes, oh, a penny. And it's like, what humor is this? Who is this for? Like, even the humor doesn't work for me in the movie. It's just, it's off-putting as an experience, I think. Just, like, don't try to be something else. Try to be yourself. That's the problem with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have it also at 58, so.
Oh, good.
I have it at 56, which I kind of can't believe. I'm like, dude, I have it that high. It's because the other ones are so much worse in my mind.
Yeah. Okay, and then for 59, I've got The Black Cauldron, which is just a languid experience as a movie. Again, I wrote in the little snippet that I did back in the day that I don't even know what the main character's name is. I can't remember anything that happens in this. I just know that the protagonist doesn't solve anything. He has somebody come in and solve things for him, and that doesn't work for me. Just the way that they're trying to be Star Wars, they're trying to be Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings, they're trying to do all these things, and they're just not as good at it because, again, did Katzenberg or whatever cut out like a whole section of it? Is that what you guys talk about?
Yes. We want to see the pre-Katzenberg cut.
I don't know if the extra half hour is going to help the animation or the stupid.
I don't think so either. It's kind of that morbid curiosity.
I have it at 55, so I'm right there with you.
Yeah,
it's
see, and I have it at 60. It's the worst for me.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So Home in the Range moved up. Stanford for you?
No, I have Home in the Range at like 58, I think.
Okay. So low.
I've got to double check, but yeah.
I have it at 60.
Yeah, it's on the bottom for Rachel. I know that for sure. Yeah.
It's weird just because I don't think two ways about it. I think it's just harmless. And so I watched it and was like, yeah, whatever. And then I haven't thought about it since. But it's just funny seeing people like bring it up again and again. It's one of the worst.
Yeah.
So maybe I need to watch it again.
I have it at 59, and I think too. Well, a big thing about it, Darin, I think probably, and I don't want to necessarily speak for you, Rachel, but I know we've talked about this in that, Disney was touting this was like their final hand-drawn animated movie. Yeah. And so like that should make it maybe kind of special. But instead it's just Drek, and you just think, well, this is the movie that killed hand-drawn animation at Disney in a way.
This is how they went out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what do you have last?
My absolute worst. It's the only movie in the entire canon that I gave an F, and I've already mentioned it. It's Oliver and Company. I can't think of another Disney movie that I've watched that I wanted to take a shower after watching it. This movie, it looks so dirty, and it's that the characters, like the main girl gets kidnapped and she's held for ransom, and the heroes are stealing from people. And then at the climax on the subway, the bad guy and his dogs get electrocuted to death on the subway tracks. The whole movie, and again, Rachel, we just talked about this on Twitter. Like, some of the songs are fine, but if you put them together, it doesn't work the same way that Beauty and the Beast songs work together. It's just, imagine and because they had different writers, right? I do like you do, Rachel. I do like that they had different singers come in. It felt like a talent show, not a talent show, but like just like a show. A sound check, right? But the quality of the songs, the quality of how they sound, just imagine, because Alan Menken and Glenn Slater wrote the lyrics for Tangled, but they also wrote the lyrics for Home on the Range. Just imagine if there was if they had Tangled, but they poured it in every now and then, a song from Home on the Range, and stuck it into Tangled. It would have the same effect for me. They don't work as a whole, the way that Beauty and the Beast or Aladdin works, how they all sound like they're relatively from the same mind. So even the songs don't work for me. Just the whole movie is just dirty, and it gives me such a yucky feeling. And the fact that it came out the year before Little Mermaid is mind-boggling to me. The uptick in quality is astounding.
I have it at 48. I don't really enjoy it. I guess, give it a tiny, tiny bump because I do like Once Upon a Time in New York City, which was the first Ashman Menken song that they ever did for Disney. I do like that, and I also like Why Should I Worry? That's a fun sequence. I also there are not very many Disney movies that are set in metropolitan areas. Usually, if they do, it's kind of a fantasy type, San Francisco or that kind of a thing. There's a little bit of London and 101 Dalmatians. I do kind of like that New York is a character in this movie, but I really hate what they did with Fagin. I really don't like. It's not Penny. Jenny, I think.
Jenny.
Yeah.
Jenny. I
Jenny.
don't like Jenny. So 48 is where I got for me, but I get it. It's not a strong film.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking with us. This was a blast. It's so fun hearing your ranking.
Okay. Again, this is, like I said,
love your ranking.
Yeah, I've got like a bucket list of podcasts that I want to show up on, and just, Rachel, like any one of your podcasts, even the Sex and the City one, like, it would be a dream just being able to jump on and chat with you about that. And talking with Stan, it's a dream. And again, as much as Disney means to me, being able to come on here, I'm not the type to try and like audition or try to get myself. I know that whenever you comment on Disney stuff, I've posted like links to these, and so finally you noticed. You were like, "Oh yeah, you have that ranking." I'm like, finally she got it. Like, so that was kind of my audition. So I'm glad that.
Thank you. Well, we will definitely get you on Hallmarkies one of these days as well, because we've had a blast. I've had a blast, and Stanford, where can people find you?
On Twitter, I'm at Stanford Clark, and then I have a movie podcast and blog at moviespastandpresent.com.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And where Darin, can they find you on social media and also your podcast?
I am just on Twitter. I'm not on Facebook or anywhere else. You can find me at DW Lundberg. Again, you'll find NostalgiaCast. You'll get a picture of my son with a Batman beanie on his head. Or no, what we do, I changed that. It's now Kevin Costner. So never mind. I'm looking at the picture of myself now. It's Kevin Costner from Field of Dreams, which is my favorite movie. So that will mark me. And then again, you can find NostalgiaCast at Libsyn, or I have a link tree on my Twitter account. So just click on that and listen to the podcast wherever you want. We're taking a break right now. I think we just released our 60th episode on The Parent Trap from 1998 with Natasha Alvar, Rachel, a mutual friend of ours. And so being able to chat with her was another dream. And so go there. And again, we're going to do The Swan Princess next with Molly Raspberry. And so that'll be out in the next couple of weeks.
Love her too.
If you want to listen to us on Apple or on Stitcher or, anywhere you listen to podcasts, you'll find us there.
Here's a little piece of trivia. The very first podcast that Stanford and I ever did together was on Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams.
Oh, you got it. I mean,
I adore that movie.
Oh, good. That we can be friends. Subjectivity is fine, but if you don't like Field of Dreams, you can just get out.
The Rescuers is one thing.
Did you ever watch? There's a really funny episode of How I Met Your Mother where Robin admits that she doesn't like Field of Dreams, and like Marshall and Barney are like horrified.
Yeah,
like Field of Dreams.
Yeah, that's why I stopped watching the show. Actually, I couldn't.
But anyway, you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. Also, make sure you're following us at Disney Talking on Twitter, and please leave your comments and let us know what you think of all the things we talked about. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And please, if you were listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. That helps us so much. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. And check out the Patreon. We have and the merch store. We have hashtag Animation Junkie shirts. Please take a look at that. And thanks so much, Darin, again. And we'll talk to y'all later. Bye, everyone.
Bye.